victim or a murderer?
I'm both victim and perpetrator.
Here real quick, you see an eyebrow flash around both victim and then perpetrator. Again, you see that eyebrow flash in the forehead, creasing the significance to those words. The use of the word perpetrator instead of murderer, as the interviewer uses herself, because perpetrator is a lesser word and alleviates a bit of guilt around being a murderer. It takes away the accountability Gypsy would need to say that word that's more extreme.
At what stage or age did you realize that it was a farce?
I knew that I could walk. I knew that I could eat, so I didn't need the feeding tube. But the other things like cancer.
Here she pretends she had no idea whether or not she had cancer, but there's an uplifting of features such as eyebrows and cheekbones, dilating of pupils, and a smirk. Duper's delight.
You can't see that. So
there's a referential shift when she says other things like cancer, you can't see that, which again alleviates accountability from herself. She's not eye accessing, data collecting, thinking about what took place and what she's going to say. Her eyes are shifting all over the place. Her inability to just confidently tell us what took place. You also see hand movements that aren't as aggressive and confident. She says that she believed she had things like cancer up until she was arrested, but you see eye blocking around arrested and believed. It is very likely that she did not actually believe that she had cancer all the way up until she was arrested, and most of us have seen evidence to prove and confirm that she did not actually believe that up until the time that she was arrested. So you see that eye blocking there, and her inability to confidently tell us what's taking place and to look at the camera.
Christian, so many people want to know, why didn't you get up and walk? Tell someone, run away, tell a doctor.
I don't think people understand the emotional hold that an abuser has on their victims. So, asking me that is the same as putting me in a category of saying, well, domestic violence survivors, why didn't they just leave their abusive husbands?
There's a lot of mouth shrugging, a lot of actual shrugging. Her head is tilted, exposing this vulnerable side of her neck. This indicates either intrigue, interest, engagement, or uncertainty. In this case, very much uncertainty in what she's saying, a lack of confidence. There's a bit of a lilt in some of what she's saying. And the eyebrow flashes are again around all of the wrong words, asking me that. But then this subtle lack of harmony around victims as her hands go this way away from herself, not putting herself in the category of victims, despite verbally saying that she is in the same category as a victim. We're also not seeing eye accessing that we should see here, grief muscles, the glabella furrowing that we should see around this, and the forehead creasing where we should see it. We're not seeing all of these indications that there's been some trauma, some traumatic event as she's describing, and she even uses distancing language, adding in details and descriptors in between what she's saying that's in relation to herself. So she says that's the same as putting me in the category of, instead of, well, I was a victim, and as other victims behave, or as what happens with other victims, she doesn't take that ownership or that accountability there. It's in relation to other people, and she shifts that perspective. This is often, with the cluster of other behaviors, an indication someone is being deceptive. Adding in further details, that distancing between what took place with herself and what took place with others, that shift in perspective there. With the high blink rate, her not looking at the camera, the eye blocking in certain places where she says she believes, and the lack of an eyebrow flash around victims, instead it's with asking me and not around the words that we should be seeing it, that lack of grief. All of this tells me that she's not telling us the truth.
Instruct him to stab her 17 times.
No, I did not.
To nearly decapitate her.
Now she's being asked, did she instruct Nick Godejohn, the guy who is currently in prison for life for ending Dee Dee Blanchard's life, if Gypsy instructed him on how to end Dee Dee's life? And Gypsy is saying here, no, I did not. However, she's not able to confidently do that. Again, eye blocking, this aversion, this keeping something out, failure to confront what's in front of her, what she's saying, who she's speaking to. She turns her head and her head's tilted. This lacking certainty here, and the lowering of the voice, and just a huge lack of certainty around what she's saying. She's not saying, no, I didn't. And what we should see is the glabella furrowing, the grief muscles there, some tension in the lower jaw, some anger about being accused of such a thing. Now again, we do know, based on what has been leaked, photos that have been leaked and footage that has been leaked, she has actually instructed Nick Godejohn on how to stab Dee Dee Blanchard.
Make that decision. your mother was the only way that you could be free.
I had tried to exhaust all the options that I thought was available to me.
It's a sign of the desperation. I think you were such a, seemingly sweet young woman with a very...
We have eye blocking around, tried to, in this subtle lack of harmony again, options available. She adds these distancing words here, these extra words here to distance what took place and what she actually did. What we're not hearing her say is, I exhausted all of the options. I did my best. We're seeing a lack of confidence there, some uncertainty, tilting of the head, eye blocking around tried, and her hands illustrating this direction away from her body. This lack of harmony typically with what's taking place, and conflict with that. As the interviewer says, you seem like such a sweet lady, she says, and there's this eyebrow flash around. There's more confidence around this than what she said about exhausting her options. And she says thoughts available to her, not options that were available to her, options she had considered. Lack of confidence verbally, as that lack of confidence that eye block around tried, and more lack of harmony around options available. And this isn't even done with conviction there, really emphasizing those words. I tried my best that we would expect to see there.
Having lived a very sheltered life.
Exactly.
That's where your mind went.
Exactly. Because it's not like I had a criminal record. It's not that I had a history of violence or anything like that.
Been running with the wrong crowd.
No running with the wrong...
There's a mouth shrug when the interviewer says sheltered life. Again, this lack of certainty, something else going on there that indicates that's not necessarily fully the case, that she didn't have the sheltered life. There is photo evidence of this, but we're very much saying that. And then eyebrow flashing around record. She didn't have a criminal record, but not so much around a criminal. Her eyes shift away from the camera, this aversion to the word criminal record. And this is all in conflict with narrative she has stated in other interviews where she has said that she did do something, she does regret it, she did do something violent. She doesn't use the word violent. She fails to use these extreme words that would place accountability and guilt on herself. She does confess to doing something criminal, and then she has also been charged with theft, with being a con artist, with fraud, and she doesn't admit to that here as well. She didn't have this criminal history, guiding the audience to believe that she really was this meek, sweet, innocent person who didn't know any better. She was totally naive. She tried to get away, but there was no other option than to do what she did ultimately do.
Wrong crowd. It was...
In fact, you had no friends.
I didn't have any friends. I wasn't allowed to. So she controlled everything in my life.
Again, we're just seeing a lot of shrugging, mouth shrugging, no eyebrow flashes and uplifting of features, and confidence around where we should be seeing it. I wasn't allowed to have friends. You see that exposing of the vulnerable side of her neck, but this is a lack of certainty, and that's what we're seeing very much here with that, and the turtling, the shrugging, the mouth shrugging, all of this lack of certainty and confidence around this, and the lack of eyebrow flashing where we should see it.
We watched a movie, and then we went to sleep, and then it happened.
Do you remember your last words with her?
I did. I did go to the kitchen and I gave her a hug and I told her I love you. And I remember holding a...
You continue to hear distancing language, all of these filler words and things in between what took place, indicating other things took place in between those spaces. She uses, and then she says Habitat for Humanity at one point, adding in that extraneous information. This is very typical of people who are being deceptive. There's gaps in this timeline of events, and this brief eye blocking around sleep, it doesn't show it. It's very, very brief and subtle, and this huge lack of certainty around all of this. Her tone's lowered. She's using what she would typically use to manipulate others. Her lower, more childlike voice, she very much uses that here. Her ex-husband Ryan and others have stated this is what she will do when she wants to manipulate people. We are not seeing the confidence, her sitting upright, her eyebrow flashes, forehead creases, grief muscles where we should, negative tonality where we should. We're not seeing positive tonality either, but we aren't seeing all of the grief and exhaustion that we would expect to see around something that took place where Gypsy was incapable of saving her mother's life and that she didn't actually commit a crime, that someone Nick Godejohn came in and she says, it happened. Now there is an eyebrow raised there. And again, this lack of accountability there, as she does not say the murder, the crime, this gruesome, violent, hostile thing took place. And typically people who are guilty will do this where they are alleviating guilt and shame and accountability from themselves. They won't use those extreme words. When it's someone else, they would be angry, there would be tension in the lower jaw, glabella furrowing, or grief, some indication of grief around this taking place, and someone else coming in that they should feel a level of anger towards. Instead, you're seeing a huge lack of confidence in what she's telling us, and someone trying to appear as if she's meek, naive, which she would not have to do if this had actually taken place, where she was actually the innocent person in this scene.
It was so unbearable that for Gypsy, prison felt like a holiday.
That was the most freedom I had ever had. I was like, I can have a job now. And, I was one of those people that's like, yay, I'm excited.
Gypsy rose turtles here when she states she was happy about the idea of getting a job. This is a limbic response to a threat or confrontation. It's a protective lowering of the head and shrinking of herself to avoid attention. What we should see instead is an uplifting of features that indicates real joy.
Have a job.
And eat normal food?
Eat normal food. Like, this is...
Well, you see a lot of positive tonality here, genuine smiles. There's also a lot of shrugging going on with the shoulders, with the mouth, with her hands, a lot of shrugging going on, a lot of uncertainty going on. And while she's expressing this joy around, I could have a job, there's this aversion. She turns away from the camera, this indication that that wasn't necessarily what she had planned to do. And as we know, she didn't actually end up doing that. And we're seeing that confirmed verbally here, that there's this aversion to job, the shoulder shrug. She could, it's possible, but she did not actually plan on doing this. And there's this lack of confidence there, for there's some fidgeting and adapters, some self-soothing behaviors and distractions from what she's actually saying, where she has this alleged freedom more so in prison than she did outside of prison prior to the crime.
Rails, we got tattoos and we got pregnant with them.
They're starting over, determined to create a safe and happy home.
In this scene, a lot of things are taking place. Ken's arm closer to the interviewer is outstretched, but away from Gypsy. There's a lot of aversion to facing Gypsy. He says, we did go off the rails, and his hand very loosely illustrates towards Gypsy, but his head turns away. He doesn't say, she and I got tattoos, we got tattoos. So there's this aversion to Gypsy here, and that's also expressed with the one hand away from and not connecting to Gypsy. He's not leaned towards her and more engaged in what she's saying and how she feels and is reacting to things, more so with the interviewer. The interviewer, however, has one hand more towards Gypsy. Now, this could be a barrier blocking Gypsy off, but she is leaned more towards Gypsy and seems more interested and connected with her than with Ken, more turned away, less connected with Ken. Now, a lot of people are talking about how Ken uses loose hand movements. They're not as aggressive that you'd expect from someone who is masculine. It seems to be less aggressive, more feminine hand movements. I don't want to say much about his potential sexuality, but this is a lack of confidence as well, a lack of harmony. He's detached her from him and more connected with, making even more eye contact with, and reaching out to the interviewer than with Gypsy, who he is supposed to be in love with.
For their baby girl, what would you like childhood to be like for your daughter?
Honestly, I would just want my children and my child to have a childhood that, I never had.
Yeah.
So, growing up, I missed out on all those, milestone moments, going to kindergarten and, a prom and all these different things that, kids experience. I didn't get to.
You further see the lack of harmony and confidence in what she's saying, even a lilt when she says kindergarten, and her head tilting and the hand away from her, lacking harmony there. So the word kindergarten and this experience that she allegedly did not have. It's not, I did not go to kindergarten. I did not do that. Something that we should see, an eyebrow flashing around kindergarten. I did not get to go to kindergarten. And her tone even lowers. She is not able to just tell the interviewer, I didn't go to kindergarten. I didn't get to do that. Now we should see some shoulder shrugging there, but not this lack of harmony, this detachment from this experience. experience this question and her head tilting this direction, this high blink rate and eye blocking along certain words. And of course, this is something else that has been confirmed. Photo evidence of her going to school at some point and actually having these milestones that she's trying to tell people that she has not had.